Good morning. It is 9:06 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Some of the best things that happen is when you're driving into work and you have an entire show planned and then it's completely upended by the news cycle. It's exciting. Tim Walz is going to be the running mate. He doesn't look like he does too much running, but he's going to be the VP pick for Kamala Harris, the governor of Minnesota. It's quite the pick. Quite the pick. Gives off Tim Kaine vibes. Gives off the same energy as Timothy Kaine does. And I think that come November 5th, we'll say, congratulations. Failed vice presidential pick is your ceiling, sir. That's the ceiling. Tim Walz, the guy who signed a law enshrining abortion on demand without limits until birth. Tim Walz, the guy who repealed a program supporting pregnant women. Tim Walz stripped away the rights of newborn babies to receive life-saving care. That's the Tim Walz they chose, a radical liberal. You know, he's the guy that coined the weird phrase for J.D. Vance. Tim Walz, the guy that signed a bill requiring schools to stock tampons in the boys' bathrooms, is the guy who's calling J.D. Vance weird. Yeah, that's Tim Walz. Tim Walz has a history. Tim Walz fled Minneapolis as rioters burned the city to the ground. He delayed the National Guard. He gave up the 3rd Precinct during the BLM Summer of Love. That's Tim Walz. Tim Walz, the guy that really, truly believes in sanctuary cities. This is Tim Walz. You want to give me a little audio? Thank you, sir. This is Tim Walz.
Should Minnesota be a sanctuary state?
If the definition of that is that the federal government enforces immigration law and local law enforcement enforces local law, then yes.
He likes sanctuary states. Tim Walz. Tim Walz, who just a few weeks ago said if you're worried about President Biden's decline, his cognitive decline, it's ageism.
I've spent a lot of time with the president, and he's great. We're talking, we're chatting, and all this. And I think we all get a little older. That's what happens. But you also gain that insight. And I think when it comes to these issues, working across the aisle to get things done, you see the president just doing this with dignity, doing it with class, getting up every day, doing the work. So I think he's just doing what he does. And I think it's kind of incumbent upon all of us. Look, my mom's 88, still living on the farm, drives herself. Folks are able to do this, so I think this little bit of ageism that goes to this, if it's not that, would be something else.
It's ageism when you remark that Biden had cognitive decline. That's Tim Walz. I mean, we can keep going. The internet is forever. That's what the left doesn't understand, and we're already gathering the receipts on Tim Walz. Last year, Tim Walz signed an executive order that made Minnesota a sanctuary state for child gender abuse. The left likes to call it gender-affirming care because they manipulate the language, but he invited families to his state that are transitioning their 6-year-olds. Incredibly evil. Incredibly evil. Perfect fit for Kamala VP. Perfect fit. Tim Walz is the same guy who replaced the Minnesota state flag with a flag that looks eerily similar to the Somalia flag. You know, and we know about the Ilhan Omar influence in the state of Minnesota. I made the joke on the Amigos. They praise Allah, don't you know? You know, that's Minnesota for you. And Tim Walz replaced the flag of Minnesota with a flag that looks just like Somalia's. Tim Walz. There was a guy by the name of Mike Murphy. He ran for governor of Minnesota in 2022, and he against Tim Walz, and he had put together a video montage of the failures of Tim Walz's first term, from the BLM riots to the insanity that's happening with gender-affirming care and everything in between.
I've just signed Executive Order 20-01, declaring a peacetime state of emergency for the state of Minnesota. We need to stop congregating. We're going to close the bars. We're going to close the restaurants. We're going to close the places where we gather.
Tim Walz during COVID.
100,000 of your neighbors were just laid off. An entire industry has been shut down in the face of this, all for the greater good.
The governor, with the power of the state constitution behind him, has issued 104 executive orders affecting everything from schools to restaurants and bars to churches to basically every facet of everyday life.
Democrats who control the House are moving in the opposite direction. Some are pushing to put a mask mandate in state law.
Hi ho, the Jerry-O, I wear a mask to school. It helps to keep me safe.
Explosive testimony from a Minneapolis police union official who says that the governor ordered cops to abandon that 3rd precinct during the spring's rioting.
I was in the command post. I heard it. I heard the governor say, give it up.
At 9:32, Chief Arredondo calls the mayor to tell him they've lost control, can no longer maintain order in the city. And then at 10:13, Chief Arredondo, who's monitoring the scene from a couple blocks away, gets on the radio to announce defeat.
It's a citywide tone right now in our loss of the 3rd precinct.
The 3rd precinct has been compromised.
The mayor said I request a National Guard. Ooh, I'm out. This is great. We're going to have massively trained troops. No, you're going to have 19-year-olds who are cooks.
That's Tim Walz. He was a failure during the Summer of Love. He's a failure when it comes to protecting your kids from the COVID insanity, from the gender-affirming care insanity. He's an all-around failure. Perfect pick for Kamala Harris. Perfect pick. This is, again, Tim Walz during the BLM riots, which, as you know, started in his state with the George Floyd incident. This is Tim Walz reacting to the BLM riots.
A society that does not put equity and inclusion at the center of it is certainly going to eventually come to the places where we're at. This is a moment of inflection. It's a moment of real change. It's a moment that those folks who are out there demanding this are not going to take a commission or a report. They're going to want fundamental change. And that is what I think that's one of the exciting things in the midst of all this. You can feel a sense of optimism coming back.
As they were burning down his city, he said, you can feel a sense of optimism coming back. That's Tim Walz. He's been gaslighting people for a while. Perfect fit for Kamala Harris. This guy helped ignite the George Floyd riots. He delayed the deployment of the National Guard. I just signed
Executive Order 20.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to play that. He delayed the deployment of the National Guard. Days after the attempted assassination on Donald Trump, he called Trump and his supporters fascists. He's pro-gender-affirming care for kids, gender mutilation, radical abortion laws, on demand. On immigration, he famously once said that he wanted to provide a ladder so that way illegal aliens could get over Trump's wall. This is Tim Walz. Hey, great pick. Great choice. Josh Shapiro came with a lot of baggage, right? Came with too much baggage. I mean, there were the accusations that he had a sexual assault cover-up. He had to deal with being slammed as a pick by by Fetterman. John Fetterman slammed Shapiro as Kamala's potential VP pick. But the reason that Josh Shapiro didn't get picked is because he's too Jewish. I'll say it again. Josh Shapiro is not the VP pick for Kamala Harris because he's too Jewish. That's the tolerant left. They had a guy who was qualified, smart, and honestly would have given me a little bit more pause than Tim Walz does. But they couldn't choose him because he was too Jewish. And this is after he tried to distance himself from past IDF comments and previous claims that the Palestinians are too battle-minded for peace. He had to distance himself from those comments, but clearly he didn't get enough distance. He's too Jewish for the current Democrat Party. The same party that calls us Nazis decided to go with Tim Walz over Josh Shapiro because Tim Walz is not Jewish. It's wild. What a timeline. Do you realize what's happening? The radical left is moving further and further left. They are Insane. Insane. And they couldn't choose a VP pick because of his religious background. Yet we're the Nazis. We're the bigots. We're the fascists. This is us. But Josh Shapiro tried to distance himself from this. There was a 1993 newspaper op-ed where he made comments on the Palestinians being too battle-minded to negotiate peace. He identified himself as a volunteer in the Israel Defense Forces. That was too much. That was too much. And he had to distance himself from those comments if he wanted any hope of being the pick, and he didn't get enough distance. Tim Walz is the new vice presidential pick for Kamala Harris. Wild. Hey, let's it's a family affair, right? Let's see what Gwen Walz, the wife of Tim Walz, thinks about criminals and more.
And having a chance every day. Like, how many chances do you get? My answer to that is as many chances as you need.
Criminals should have as many chances as they need. These people are radically liberal. Radically liberal. Tim Walz also opened up a Office of New Americans, which spends taxpayer dollars solely on supporting immigrant and refugee integration into his sanctuary state. Walz passed laws for driver license for illegal aliens, free college for illegal aliens, free health care for illegal aliens. And they want to expand that throughout the entire country. Wild times we're living in. Tim Walz, the VP pick for Kamala Harris. We're gonna get some reaction on what this pick means. I have the CEO of the American Culture Project, John Tillman. He's going to be calling into the show here at 9:35. Also, we do have a big show for you today. Susan Crabtree from Real Clear Politics is going to be calling in around 11:05 to give us a breakdown on what's happening with the cocaine in the White House scandal. Apparently, Kimberly Cheadle was instrumental in trying to destroy some of that evidence. So Susan is going to give us an update on that, as well as the latest on the assassination investigation. We're now putting air quotes around investigation. It's been over 3 weeks and we have no real info. She's going to talk to us about that. And then Father Calvin Robinson is going to be on the show today at 10:35, checking in from London. You may know Calvin. He was the priest with the fro that had been on Tucker Carlson a few times. Really smart guy. And with everything going on in England, with the tension between their migrant problem, the stabbing that happened with 3 young girls passing away, I want to know what's going on over there. And when you look at the media, everything is through a liberal lens. Everything. So I was like, well, who do I know in London? I know Father Calvin Robinson. And I know that guy's honest, truthful, and smart, and he's going to give me a breakdown that we won't get anywhere else. He's calling into the show at 10:35 our time, 4:35 in London. So it's mid-afternoon for those guys. He'll be checking in and giving us a breakdown on what's happening there. And again, at 9:35, John Tillman, CEO of the American Culture Project, will be joining the show to discuss the VP pick, Tim Walz, and what that means for the race moving forward. It's 9:21 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
We have Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate. We also have confirmed fatalities as a result of Tropical Storm Debbie. Those stories coming up at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff Malinoff back behind the news desk at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Sorry,
Super Tech?
Super tight. Super good. I was looking at the Super Text line.
Super Dag.
8512 said, so did someone in the current administration say the words they didn't select one VP candidate because they're too Jewish, or did a Democrat hater make it up? Actually, it's been in the rumor mill for a while that Nancy Pelosi didn't want Shapiro because of the Judaism, and Tim Walz was her pick. And we all know about Nancy Pelosi in the Democrat Party. She's one of those shadowy figures in the back that pulls strings. So CNN... Obviously. CNN had a headline said, Tim Walz brings principles to the campaign. Principles. Like, like the principles of letting kids chop off their bits.
Yeah. Underage gender swap is...
For healthcare.
Right up his alley.
It's healthcare.
Yeah.
Or the principles of abortion on demand. That's,
jeez.
That's interesting. Hot take from CNN. He gives off Tim Kaine vibes with a radical element. He is a Tim Kaine that's been radicalized. That's Tim Walz. And again, from the American Culture Project, the CEO, John Tillman, is going to be joining the show at 9:35 to let us know how this is going to affect the race. It's all developing very, very quickly, but we'll have the latest for you here on WTN all day long. They are going to have that big rally in Philadelphia today. No word yet on who the musical act will be to draw the crowd in. I don't know if Tim Walz is going to draw as big of an audience as Megan Thee Stallion. What say you? Do you think?
I 100% doubt it.
The calls.
I don't think
continue.
you can shake it as well.
the calls for the campaign continue. Do you know they've done white dudes for Harris, white cat ladies for Harris? I think was one of them, and then there was another, but.
Random Hoarders of America.
Random Hoarders of America was one of the calls. They actually have the creepiest one just happened. Kids for Kamala.
Oh, no.
1-877 kids for Kamala.
All right. We're here on the Kids for Kamala call. And just a quick refresher. We're doing this call because right now is election season in the U.S. And what is an election? Election is the process of voting to choose someone to be the political leader. And people who want to be political leaders and are running for office are called candidates. And in the U.S., citizens are eligible to vote in elections when they're 18 years old.
Now, they left out the part that Kamala Harris hadn't received any votes. I will be perfectly honest with you. They whitewashed over that. They're lying to the kids. An election is when we vote for our candidate. This one's been special because we anointed our candidate. You see, kids, she's the most qualified for the gig.
Because we chose her to be.
Because we chose her to be. And just a few weeks ago, she was the worst vice presidential pick in history and what was weighing down Joe Biden's campaign. Kids, are you following? Some of you look confused. Some of these kids look confused.
As the candidate for president. And you might be feeling lots of different kinds of ways about the election right now. Some of you might already be excited and super pumped up to get involved. And some of you might be feeling kind of confused. Like, what is this all about?
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet the majority of the kids were very confused.
Or just zoned out on their phones.
Yeah. You mean I have to sit in this Zoom call? Who is this woman again?
Most of their cameras are probably off, and they're probably playing video games in the background, or watching a movie, or talking with each other.
What kind of bribery would you have to do for your kids to be on a Kids for Kamala call?
It must count as some sort of like credit for like college. It's the only thing that I can think of making it worth it.
This will look good on the application when we send you to a radical education camp.
Yeah.
It'll look good. Trust us, kid. 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 9:30. I'm Jeff Mellon with your top stories. It's getting up there in the 80s already. It's going to get even hotter. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Election 2024 news. Vice President Kamala Harris has elected her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, over the supposed favorite Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. ABC's Selena Wayne has more.
Not actually from a battleground state. That's why there was so much speculation about Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania being the favorite. But ultimately, Vice President Harris, I'm told, really cares about chemistry. She cares about someone who she can trust, as well as picking someone who can help her win.
24 hours after making landfall as a hurricane and getting downgraded to a tropical storm, Tropical Storm Debbie has confirmed it have taken the lives of 5 people. Jim Ryan has the story.
2 of the victims, a 13-year-old near Gainesville, Florida, and a 19-year-old in southern Georgia, were killed when trees fell onto their homes. The other 3 died in car accidents, including an 18-year-old driving a truck outside Tampa and a woman and her 12-year-old son in Dixie County, Florida.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jeff Malinoff, WTN News.
Thank you, Jeff. It's Chris Hand here for my friends at the Glock Store. You've heard me talking about the Glock Store. I try and talk about them as much as I can because I like the guys at the Glock Store. And I think it's up to you to really make sure that you're trained and ready should an emergency happen. And you got to know your firearm. You got to know how to use it. And you got to know when, right? But that training is the most important part. And I had been training in lane ranges. Maybe you train in lane ranges. Well, that all changed when I found out about the Glock Store. I had heard Murphy and Mandis talking about it, and I kind of was like, yeah, it's a gun store. It's just a gun store. And I was wrong. When I got to the Glock store, it is way more than a gun store. They have a Genius bar in the back of the store that'll answer any of your questions on your Glock, up to performance parts and anything in between. And when they install your performance parts, they do it for free while you wait. After you get your gun how you like it, you're going to want to train with that gun. You can do it right there at the Glock store as well. The Shoot 270 indoor shooting rooms are unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's like nothing I've ever experienced, and I'll never go back to a lane range after that because it's just you, a private instructor, in a private shooting room. And it's totally different. You're training for real world scenarios. And after you do the shooting rooms for a while, you can then advance into the low light, no light training, where you're learning how to clear rooms in the dark. It mimics real life situations. God forbid you're ever faced with them. You do want to know how to react, and the guys at the Glock store will get you ready for it. If you haven't checked out the Glock store, I guarantee you this is going to be your new favorite place to train and shop. It's the Glock store, online at glockstore.com. Minutes from the airport, worth the drive from anywhere.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
That's Tim Walz, the now VP pick for Kamala Harris. My name is Chris Hand. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. How does the VP pick change the race? Joining us now on the Newsmaker Hotline, John Tillman. He's the CEO of the American Culture Project, and he argued in the New York Post yesterday that Harris's divisive campaign is all about revving up the fracturing Democrat coalition. So, John, I got to ask you, what does this do for the fracturing Democrat coalition?
Well, what it tells us is that they're very worried about both Michigan and Minnesota, and Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who's Jewish, had been the leading likely pick because they so desperately need Pennsylvania. But if they picked Shapiro, who's Jewish, then they put at risk their votes among the Arabic and Muslim populations, which are very significant and very influential in the outcome of elections in both Minnesota and Michigan. Michigan currently, it's a dead heat, or Trump's up a little bit. Minnesota, Trump almost won in 2016. Biden won by a little bit more in 2020, but Minnesota could be in play if they have a weakened Arabic vote and Muslim vote. So that this pick is all about trying to make sure they get both Minnesota and Michigan, and they're willing to sacrifice Pennsylvania and hope they can still hold on there.
Do leftists in Minnesota like Tim Walz?
He has been a very radical leftist governor, very much a Democrat version of a populist governor, very close to labor. In many ways, this is another example of what I talked about in the piece that you referenced that's in the New York Post, is the whole Democrat playbook for many years now, and Kamala is Vice President Harris is going to certainly play this hand all over again, which is to divide people into their group identities that have been established: blacks, Latinos, or Hispanics, single women, younger voters 18 to 29, Arabic Americans or Muslim Americans, and the LGBT community, Asians. They try to divide everybody, create a grievance argument watch the ads. All the ads will be about grievance, and they pit these groups against everyone else. Now, it gets complicated in this pick of Walz is one of the complications. On the one hand, they've always done very well with the Jewish American vote, but they've also done now very well as they kind of straddle between the Israeli Hamas conflict and in general the Middle East conflict. Now they are starting to move. The Democrat Party has moved toward the Muslim Arabic American vote versus the Jewish vote, which is a really seismic shift in their electoral strategy, and I think does not bode well for the party, and I think does not bode well for America, to be quite frank about it. The alternative is to try to have a unifying message that brings people of these diverse backgrounds together with a unifying message, and that is not what they're doing.
No, unification and unifying messages aren't the Democrats' strong point. But I'm clinging to the point where, I've made this point as well. Josh Shapiro is now too Jewish for the Democrat Party. What does that do for the Jewish vote in America?
Well, I think we're in the middle. I think one day political science historians will look back on the era that really started with Barack Obama, and it's now, I think, we're at the peak of the inflection point, is a restructuring of the entire American electorate. And Trump really accelerated that in 2016. What we are seeing is the Jewish vote, which has traditionally been Democratic, is starting to split. And I think we're going to see the highest Republican vote of the Jewish vote in history. And I think that trend is going to continue as the Democratic Party becomes ever more hostile to Jewish interest in general and Israel specifically. Not that all American Jews vote based on Israel, but many, many do. But they also see it as a proxy for anti-Semitism. The Democrat Party has major elements within it that are now anti-Semitic. And the idea that in the 21st century we'd have one of the two great parties openly anti-Semitic, as they are in many ways, is stunning. And I think we're going to see a huge demographic shift among Jewish voters in the country as a result. Along with, I think we're seeing a seismic shift among Hispanics and blacks that will play out in this election. Now,
there have been talks that New York might be in play, especially after that Bronx rally that Trump had. You see him gaining steam with the black vote. There's 2 million Jewish voters in New York. Is New York more in play now with the pick of Tim Walz than it was yesterday?
Absolutely. And I think a good example of that is people forget how close the New York governorship 2 years ago almost went to the Republican nominee. And they barely hung on for reasons beyond national politics. There's a ton of things going on policy-wise and lifestyle-wise in the state of New York, from increasing violence, higher taxes, the regulatory stranglehold, and anti-Semitism, which is a huge part the narrative that is going on in New York City. So I think New York is definitely in play. The poll, the most recent poll, there's not a ton of polling on New York, but it's in single digits. And the idea that the state of New York could possibly be in single digits is stunning. And remember when I said earlier about the idea that we could have this restructuring, the question is why? The reason why is because what the right should be doing, and I think Trump is doing to some degree, is what's more important to you, the group identity that somebody assigned you and says that your whole life is determined by the identity we've assigned you. You're black, you're brown, you're gay, you're Asian, or whatever the case may be. Those are the things that determine the outcome of your life. That's what the Democrats are saying. What Trump has an opportunity to do is say, I understand that's important. I see your uniqueness and your difference, but what is going on in your life? What is happening with your family, your community, your business life? What can I do to help you in that way? And that's a unifying message, and I think that's where the inflection point is, and I think that's where the opportunity is.
Well, and I think one of the areas the Democrats fail is they can't really speak to Americans that are suffering because they've been spending the last 3.5 years telling us how great everything is. And to your previous point about the governor race in New York, Lee Zeldin only lost to Kathy Hochul by a couple points. And this was before the migrant crisis, and this was before the anti-Semitism and all the stuff we saw in college universities. I wouldn't be shocked if New York goes red.
I wouldn't either, and I thank you for recalling the details on that, because I think that people have mostly forgotten about that for all the obvious reasons. And again, this goes to the whole point: is what's more important to you, the things that you're seeing right in your own life with your own eyes, or the narrative that the media, in complicit alignment with the Democrat Party, wants to tell you is happening. People can see the struggles we're having, the inflation we're living with, the violence we're living with, the open border and all the residual effects of that. I mean, I am very much a pro-immigration person, but we have to have security on our border and have controlled immigration. And I think that's how most conservatives are. We want immigration, but not in a way where you have 10 million people in 3.5 years coming over the border with no control whatsoever and not even sure who's actually coming, whether they're coming from China or from the Middle East.
Yeah, or if they're terrorists, like the reports of 99 terrorists being released into our country. It's insane.
Right.
If you're a fly on the wall inside the Trump war room today, how are you going after this pick and this choice with Tim Walz? What advice are you going to give them to lean into?
Tim Walz presided over the destruction in 2020 of the city of Minneapolis in Minnesota, allowed the carnage to occur there, affecting working class and middle class people who are not aligned with the radical rioters of 2020. I would talk about that and how he sanctioned that violence, and in general has a radically progressive record, and how he is aligned with those who have values that are out of alignment with American values. And I would particularly point out that their policies are harmful to the working class. The working class and the middle class have suffered under Biden with slow job creation in terms of wage growth. We actually have lower wages today than we did when Biden came into office, in part because of slow wage growth, but also because of inflation. And the fact that you have this influx of people, essentially an open border policy by the Democrats, including Governor Walz, that are taking away jobs from working class, poor Americans of all races and all backgrounds. I would really hammer the heck out of that.
We're speaking with John Tillman. He's the CEO of the American Culture Project. You know, as we speak, Amy Klobuchar is on CNN talking about how great of a pick this is. Just break it down. Is this a good pick for the Democrats? Do you think that this actually will help in any kind of way, or is this going to be a net negative?
I think it's going to be absolutely neutral. I don't think it's going to help them in terms of winning the presidency. I don't think it's going to make a material. Minnesota, even though it's very competitive, was probably going to go to Kamala Harris anyway. So, whereas I've seen a lot of polling that we're doing that the Shapiro pick in Pennsylvania would have been very helpful to Harris in winning Pennsylvania. So that's why I said at the outset, I think they've decided to trade it, securing and making sure about Minnesota and trying to get Michigan back into their fold, and they're willing to roll the dice on Pennsylvania. So I think overall it's going to be a neutral play. They're trying to mitigate the hostility they're getting from the Muslim American vote. That's what they're trying to do with this pick.
Hey, I appreciate you taking some time. I'm looking forward to seeing this rally today in Philadelphia with Harris and Walz. Do you have any inside information on who the musical guest will be today to attract a crowd?
I have not heard anything. I'm actually in Detroit, Michigan at the Henry Ford Museum, so I've not heard that. I have not seen the run of show yet.
Okay, perfect. Hey, I appreciate you calling in, John, and you're welcome on the show anytime. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Chris. Take care. Bye-bye.
John Tillman, the CEO of the American Culture Project, he's got a great article that came out in the New York Post yesterday. Harris's divisive campaign is all about revving up the fracturing Democrat coalition. Definitely worth the read. And I think that John just echoed what I truly believe. They couldn't pick Josh Shapiro because he's Jewish. The tolerant left, ladies and gentlemen. The tolerant left, the party that calls us Nazis, that calls us racist, that calls us bigots, that calls us fascists, just couldn't choose a VP because of his religious affiliation. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Well, we're going to have a lot more on Tim Walz today. Plus, we got audio from Nancy Pelosi. You're not going to believe what she said. She was asked about the coup against Joe Biden. And it's not what she says. It's how she says it that is eye-opening, and we'll play that for you next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Schools in Wilson County will be able to use AI. Also, the running mate for Kamala Harris is already on the offensive against the Republican opponents. Those stories coming up at 10 a.m. on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You're not going to be able to have AI with you wherever you go, said the teacher. Remember that when they used to tell us we won't have calculators in our pockets? Like, yeah.
That was, everything. They were like, you'll never be able to search something on the internet whenever you need it.
Yeah.
It's like...
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm Chris Hand. You can find me on Twitter, True Social, Instagram, at Chris Hand on air. Hit the follow button. I will follow back. If you missed our interview with John Tillman, CEO of the American Culture Project, on the latest VP pick, we will have it on the podcast page, either on 997WTN.com or Apple and Spotify. Got a text here from my friend Bill. He said, was Walz picked, or was he the only one who would take the job and risk his political career? I do actually think Walz was picked. I think if it had been Pete Buttigieg, we could have that conversation. Maybe he's the only one dumb enough to take the job. But there were idiots all over the Democrat Party that would have taken it, right? If it wasn't Walz, it would have been J.B. Pritzker. And I think Shapiro would have taken the gig, but, too Jewish. Weird, sad. The state of America, the state of the left. So tolerant, right? So tolerant. And all of this is because of the coup that happened against Joe Biden. Nancy Pelosi was asked if she had spoken to Joe Biden since he dropped out, since the coup. And her answer really exposes to me how much of a coup it was, because you can hear in her voice some pain.
Have you spoken to President Biden since he dropped out?
No, I have not.
Do you hope to?
Yes, I hope to.
Yeah.
We're all busy.
Is everything okay with your relationship?
You'd have to ask him, but I hope so. But he knows. Look, I have loved Joe Biden, respected him for over 40 years. Mm-hmm. I was party chair in California, then I became member of Congress, and then one thing, other housewife, House member, House Speaker, working with him all along.
Do you hear that in her voice? Do you hear that kind of guilt and a little bit of pain? And it sounds like Joe Biden isn't talking to her at all. The coup was in, and Nancy Pelosi was in on it.
I think he has made one of the biggest contributions to our country in the shortest period of time of any president you can name, whether it's job creation, whether it's, the first bill that protect our bill.
Oh, she's having a tough time there listing Joe Biden's accomplishments. Did you catch that? He's been so accomplished since
whether it's the first bill that protect our bill.
COVID.
Shots in the arm, money in the pockets, children in school, people at work.
Shots in the arm, money in the pocket, children in school, people at work. Actually, none of those have been hallmarks of the Biden regime. And nothing's going to change if Harris wins, because as she said herself, she's been in every one of those rooms, the last person to leave, helping make every single decision. It's 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 10 a.m. and I'm Jeff Malinoff with your top stories. It is 85 degrees. It's going to get up in the 90s, so get ready for that. Full forecast in about 2 minutes. Election 2024 news with Vice President Kamala Harris choosing Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. He has already pushed hard against Republican running mate Senator J.D. Vance. Here's ABC's Selena Wayne.
He has emerged as the favorite very recently as he has been on the cables, on the network, showing that he can effectively push back on those Republican attacks. He's the one who labeled J.D. Vance and his Republican allies as, quote, weird, which gained a lot of steam with the Harris campaign.
The Harris campaign has been using that word weird to describe nominee Donald Trump as well in the last few weeks. A Texas Ranger who was suspended following the Uvalde school shooting in May of 2022 and the slow response time during that shooting has been reinstated. ABC's Jim Ryan with the story.
The Texas Rangers are an elite group within the State Department of Public Safety. Christopher Ryan Kindle was one of 2 Rangers terminated over their response to the 2022 Robb Elementary School massacre. Texas DPS Director Steve McCraw has notified Kindle that after the Uvalde County DA found no criminal wrongdoing on the part of his agency, Kindle is, quote, removed from suspended status. He can now go back to work as a Texas Ranger in Uvalde County. Jim Ryan, ABC News, Dallas.
News in Nashville. The Wilson County Board of Education has approved a new artificial intelligence policy following a new law going into effect in this year. The Board of Education approved its new AI policy during Monday night's meeting. According to the newly adopted policy, staff will now be able to use AI in the completion of their own work, with students being allowed to use the approved AI programs when allowed by teachers for instructional purposes. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jeff Malinoff, WTN News.
.05 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Mason has been working really hard behind the scenes today, for the record.
I'm trying.
He's running around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to make sure we're connected to London.
Yeah, this dude's got me busy.
Yeah, Father Calvin Robinson, you may know him. He's been on Tucker Carlson tonight, back when Tucker still had a show. I moderated a panel with him at Believers Summit last weekend. The weekend before last in West Palm Beach, Florida. Really, really bright guy, and unafraid of telling the truth. So we're in the process of connecting with London.
Yeah.
So that way we can get his insight on what's happening on the ground there. If you haven't been paying attention, England is on fire. England's on fire. 3 young girls were murdered, stabbed by what appears to be a radical Islamist And since then, there's been protests and there's been riots and a lot of people up in arms. And as I try to get information on that story, I get it through a very left-leaning lens, as most data that comes out of England tends to go through. So I was like, who do we know that can give us the insight that's on the ground there? And Father Calvin Robinson came to mind, and he's been gracious enough to join the show today at 10:35. As we talk about England, moving forward in the show, I worry about that because of what we see happening here with our own wide open southern border. It really gives me pause. I think that what happens over there in England and in Europe, we're 10 years away from seeing it here. And if you look at some of the videos coming out of London and England, it's just chaos. Chaos. Migrant gangs versus local protesters, and the government seems to be firmly against the locals, which is insane. So it scares me. It does. It makes me nervous as we move forward here in America with a wide open southern border. There's a story out today that was shocking, but not shocking in the way that you would think. We're not surprised by this story, but it's just shocking that it's in black and white and in ink. The Biden-Harris regime let 99 illegal aliens on the terror watch list into the United States while Kamala was the border czar. This is according to the House Judiciary report. The new report was released yesterday, and it's revealed that under the Biden-Harris regime, 99 illegal aliens on the terror watch list were released into the United States. Now, with Kamala running for president, it's important to ask her, why? You were tasked with border security and migration. She famously told people, don't come. Well, they did anyway. And now national security officials are alerting Americans about potential terrorist threats. The Biden-Harris regime downplays those national security threats. They downplay the nightmare at the southern border, but we all know what's happening. So we're waiting for the other shoe to drop on a terror attack, similar to what we see in London, similar to what we saw with those 3 girls being stabbed by a radical Islamist. We're just waiting. We're just waiting. The report released by the House Judiciary noted that Border Patrol encountered people attempting to cross the border illegally who were on the terror watch list originating from 36 different countries: Afghanistan, Iraq, Lebanon, Kyrgyzstan, Mauritania, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria, Tajikistan, Turkey, Uzbekistan, and Yemen. In the fiscal year 2024 so far, Border Patrol has encountered tens of thousands of illegal aliens nationwide from countries that could present national security risks. Over 2,000 Afghan nationals, over 33,000 Chinese nationals, over 500 Iranian nationals, over 500 Syrian nationals, over 3,000 Uzbek nationals, the committee stated. We're waiting for a terrorist attack to happen in this country. There was a panel on Hannity last night, and one of the guests was talking about this 99 terrorist reports that's been coming out, and he said this is just the beginning.
Let's just add to the stats in this in Jim Jordan's report: 2,100 Afghans, 33,000 Chinese, 541 Iranians, 520 Syrians, over 3,100 Uzbeks, and we know the ISIS smuggling ring has sent over 400 people in, 8 of whom were rolled up in 3 different cities, plotting and planning an attack on the eve of the Pulse nightclub hit. You're right, we're going to get hit. We're all watching it happen in real time, and the blood is on Biden's hands, it is on Harris's hands, and is on Mayorkas's hands. And I mean, it is just the most frustrating thing I've ever experienced in my professional career. We're defunding everything we can, but we've got to stop it. And I don't know what else to do except get Trump elected.
Yeah, I don't know what else to do either. But we're absolutely waiting for the worst, right? And it's already bad. Talk to the families of Rachel Marin, Laken Riley, Jocelyn Nungary. It's already bad. We're already seeing crime. We're already seeing rapes. We're already seeing murders because of the wide open southern border. And it just seems like we're waiting for the other shoe to drop on a massive terror attack. And we've been waiting now for what feels like years for this to come to fruition. But this latest report, 99 terror watch list suspects released into the United States. And the scary part is that they had them in custody. These are people they had in custody and decided to release into the interior of the United States. These are not people that snuck around Border Patrol and weren't noticed as they cut through the fence. These are people who were apprehended and later released. Insanity. Stephen Miller was also on that panel on Hannity, and he had this to say. You know Stephen Miller, he was former Trump administration official, really against the open borders, to say the least.
This is infuriating, enraging, disqualifying, and unforgivable. Sean, 99 terrorists were in Border Patrol custody. Border Patrol had them. Border Czar Harris and Joe Biden set them free. Now they're in your cities. Now they're in your communities. Now they're in your neighborhoods. As you said, they're plotting. They're scheming. They're planning. The same Democrats who made your little kids wear masks in school say that foreign terrorists have free entry into this country. They do not care about you. They do not care about your family. They do not care about America. They just want an open border, no matter how much blood is spilled as a result. This is heinous. The two incompetents in the White House are leading us on the road to ruin.
Leading us on the road to ruin. I think that is understated at best. They're leading us to unnecessary bloodshed with their wide open border policies. And nothing is going to change if Kamala Harris becomes the president. It will be a continuation of the exact same policies across the board, whether it's the wide open border or the disastrous economic policies that we've seen as the markets tank because of this regime. And when it comes to the economy, nothing will change if Kamala Harris is elected. In fact, a lot of the people that are top economic advisors to Biden now are fleeing the White House for the Kamala camp as global markets tank. Top Biden White House economic advisor Gene Sperling is leaving the administration and going to the Kamala Harris campaign. So the people that have trashed the economy are now working for the Kamala Harris campaign, so that way, if she's elected, they can continue trashing the economy. According to the Associated Press, Sperling will become the economic advisor to the Harris policy team on her campaign. Sperling worked for Harris for the first time as California Attorney General when he was in the Obama administration and consulted with her when she was in the Senate. And he's been in there. He's been in there helping, air quotes, helping with the economy under Joe Biden. Unreal. And now they're just with the Kamala campaign. Woo! Nothing will change if Kamala Harris is elected. Nothing. And speaking of Kamala Harris on the economy, you remember this clip has been circulating again, resurfacing, if you will, as all the receipts have on Kamala Harris and now Tim Walz. This is Kamala Harris talking and explaining inflation.
What else are you going to do to fix this problem with inflation?
All right, thank you. Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up, and families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more. And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up. That's about having to stress and stretch limited resources. That's about a source of stress for families that is not only economic, but is on a daily level, something that is a heavy weight to carry. So it is something that we take very seriously. very seriously. And we know from the history of this issue in the United States that when you see these prices go up, it has a direct impact on the quality of life for all people in our country. So it's a big issue, and we take it seriously. And it is a priority, therefore.
It's a priority. She just talks in circles. Do you trust her to fix the economy? Well, Americans don't. Actually, according to a Wall Street Journal poll, Trump tops Harris on the economy 52-40. 52-40. He tops her on all the big issues, whether it's the wide open southern border or the economy. Trump has a massive lead nationally. Why would you trust her? Super texters are correcting me. I said it would be more of the same if Kamala becomes president, and the super texters are right. It actually won't be the same. It'll be even worse. Yeah, fact check true. Fact check true. And nothing is going to get any better. Nothing's going to get any better. And as that economy crumbles, top Biden economic aid flees for the Harris camp. This is the same guy who coordinated the American Rescue Plan, Gene Sperling. Trump responded to the economy yesterday with a simple, I told you so. I told you so. Is there any lie in that statement? Trump told us a long time ago, if these people are elected, the economy will crash.
And you know what? I'm not so far away from that again, believe it or not. But if Biden gets in, the market will crash.
If Biden gets in, the market will crash. If Harris gets in, it'll crash even more. And the media is not going to tell you any of this. The media is still gaslighting you like she's the most competent, the best equipped for the job. But she hasn't even done an interview. She hasn't done an interview in weeks. No interview since becoming the Democrat nominee. No questions about the economy. No questions about the wide open southern border. No questions about foreign policy as the world crumbles apart in the Middle East, descends into war. An American base was bombed in Iraq yesterday. The mainstream media isn't going to tell you about it. They're going to focus on Tim Walz and how he's such a great pick. Woohoo! Greatest pick. But yesterday, American soldiers hit in a huge rocket attack on military base in Iraq. Have you heard anything about that on CNN? The base in the west of the country was targeted by 2 Soviet-made Katyusha rockets amid soaring tensions in the Middle East, with Iran threatening to strike Israel as early as today. Everything falls apart when Democrats are in control. Everything. Mike and Dixon, you're next on Super Talk. What's up, Mike?
Oh, how you doing today, man?
Good, man. How are you?
You just played that clip of Calamity Harris on inflation, and I had a flashback to that Ron DeSantis, Gavin Newsom debate, and I think she went to Gavin Newsom's school of answering the question, because neither one of them can.
Well, you're giving her a lot of credit for going to school.
Well, yeah, you got a point there.
I mean, it's just been chaos. She can't answer any questions. This is why she's not giving any interviews, Mike.
No, they talk in circles. That's all they ever do.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate the call. Yeah, the circles are the only way that they can talk. I mean, yesterday was insane. Financial sites were down everywhere. The fear index was the highest since the pandemic. Before that, the highest since 2008. And I think it's important to just point out, since Kamala took over as the nominee, we've had a stock market collapse. We've had unemployment rising. We've had an economy careening towards a recession. The Middle East is on the brink of World War III. And we found out yesterday, border czar Kamala released 99 known terrorists into the country. But hey, vote blue no matter who. Do you, right? It's 1021 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, it's Chris Hand from my friends at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. You know the guys at Busy Bee. They are the best. And they have a special going on right now. Back to school, Buy one, get one on Beehive Club memberships now through the end of August. This is a fantastic deal. I mean, the Beehive Club membership on its own is a fantastic deal. It's only $99 and you get so much value. 3 annual tune-ups, 1 for your heating, 1 for your cooling, 1 for your plumbing, a 10% discount on all repairs, priority front-of-the-line service, a $100 annual accrued replacement credit with a maximum of $1,000, no overtime or holiday fees, and exclusive Beehive member promotions. Yes, all of that for only $99 when you join the Beehive Club. It pays for itself instantly. And now through the end of August, it's buy one, get one on Beehive Club memberships for back to school. So you can buy one and you can give one to a teacher, a faculty member, or a coach at your school. Fantastic deal. Beats an apple. Call Busy Bee, your Rude Pro partner, for satisfaction guaranteed. It's always Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. 615-775-7833. That's 615-775-7833. Always online, busybeehvac.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
To aftermath of the stock market plunge yesterday and the fear of a recession. Also, military troops injured in Iraq. Those stories at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jeff. It's 10:25 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, how are you? I'm Chris Hand. You can find me on Twitter, True Social, Instagram at Chris Hand on Air. Mandis sent me a text just a moment ago. Dan Mandis. He said, say hi to the guy driving a post office vehicle who just got gas at the corner of Nonaville and Saunderville in Mount Juliet. He had you blasting. To which I responded, anecdotally, we're the #1 show with post office workers in Middle Tennessee, anecdotally speaking. So hello to the post office guy getting gas there in Mount Juliet. Mandis had his eye on you. Just leave that there.
Sorry. I am. Were you talking to me?
No.
I just wanted to make sure. I was like, no. I am bouncing back and forth, making sure that we got this kicking interview for next segment. I am so hype.
Mason is getting his steps in.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
We're connecting with London, so Mason's like flying back and forth between two studios to make sure we got it good.
Dude, I'm ready.
Well, I mean, this story in England doesn't get the national coverage that it should be. This is towards the end of July, there was a mass stabbing incident in England, Southport, England. 3 children died as a result of this.
Wow.
It was a Taylor Swift-themed children's party in Southport, England. And the killer was from a family of Rwandan refugees. 3 kids died. Since then, there's been mass protests and riots throughout England. The Prime Minister has been threatening the local English with all sorts of penalties for protesting. And Nigel Farage is accusing them of 2 tiers of policing. I mean, listen to this. So the Prime Minister and the police in England are threatening prison sentences for rioting up to 10 years, violent disorder up to 5 years, inciting racial hatred up to 7 years, criminal damage up to 10 years. Meanwhile, a lot of these migrants in England get slaps on the wrist and community service for crimes like rape. And they say, what is going on in England? What is going on? Nigel Farage is upset, calling it 2 tiers of justice. Under the banner of 2-tier Keir, who is the Prime Minister of England, critics state that the Prime Minister has been quick to come down hard on the riots of the past week while reacting equanimously, even with professed compassion, to other riots involving ethnic minorities rather than ethnic majority activists. Nigel Farage called back to when Sir Keir, as leader of the opposition, knelt for BLM rioters in 2020. And the then conservative government kid glove approach to those protests and said, even since the soft policing of the Black Lives Matter protests, the impression of 2-tier policing has become widespread. The Prime Minister's faltering attempts to address the current crisis have only added to that sense of injustice. And in recent weeks, the protests turning into riots among Britain's Muslim community in Manchester and among the Gypsy Roma community in Leeds has been chaotic, to say the least. Previously reported senior lawmaker Lord Goldsmith was among those who pointed out the very changed approach to government rhetoric on the various eruptions of violence in England. So when I want to get some information, I want to make sure that we're talking to somebody who's on the ground there and knows that. Father Calvin Robinson, who has been a guest on Tucker Carlson, and he's just a really smart guy, is going to break down exactly what's happening to us with an unbiased approach and with a sense of truth that you won't find from many over across the pond in England. So we're looking forward to that conversation. We'll do it after the news with Jeff Malenhoff, which starts right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 10:30 a.m. and I'm Jeff Malenhoff with your top stories. Still getting up there in the high 80s. Going to get to the 90s soon. That full forecast is in 2 minutes. With one of the biggest drops in the stock market in recent memory, many fear we are closing in on a recession. However, economists see something different. Here's ABC's Rebecca Jarvis.
No doubt there are people who do not feel great about this economy. In fact, many people do. Consumer confidence is mixed. Inflation, though, this is important. It's much lower than it was a year ago. And while the chances of a recession have gone up, economists do not believe we are in one now because jobs are still being added in the economy. 114,000 jobs last month. Unemployment at 4.3%. That is very low historically, and wages are still rising.
News overseas, several United States troops have been injured in a suspected rocket attack at a military base in Iraq. More from ABC's Tom Rivers.
Troops at Al Assad Air Base are still assessing the injuries and damage. It appears, however, that as many as 7 military troops and civilians were injured. No claim of responsibility has been made, but in recent weeks, Iranian-backed Iraqi militias have resumed launching attacks on bases housing U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria after a lull of several months. Tom Rivers, ABC News at the Foreign Desk.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jeff Malinoff, WTN News.
10:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. In the past few weeks, there's been chaos in England. A stabbing attack by a knifeman from a family of Rwandan refugees taking the lives of 3 young girls. Since then, protests have erupted, some devolving into riots. The media will tell you the story through a leftist lens, but I felt like it's important to really get an idea of what's actually happening on the ground. And to do that, I've enlisted the help of Father Calvin Robinson, who is now joining us from across the pond in London. Father Robinson, how are you, sir?
Hello, very well, thank you. Well, I'm no longer in London, but I'm in a safe haven in the United Kingdom, separate from London. That place has lost its mind.
Can you explain to me what exactly is happening in England since this knife attack? And I understand that there's a lot more that happened before this that got us to this point, but kind of explain it to my audience who may not be up to speed on what's exactly happening on the ground.
Yeah, I can try. So this particular incident involved a number of young girls who were at a dance class with Taylor Swift music, popular culture, and a madman stabbed a whole load of them, killed 3 of them instantly. There are another 5 still in hospital in intensive care. And we're talking about 7-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 11-year-olds here. We're talking about innocent little girls. And this was just one among many instances of madness that's happened in this country recently. But the problem was that the media wouldn't tell us who it was or why he did it. And we're getting to the point now where we just make assumptions because the media is so careful to cover up for the sake of diversity that actually they make matters worse. And so Elsie, Alice, and BB, the 3 girls that died, we tried to mourn them. And many people took to the streets down in Southport. Many people were mourning the lives of these 3 girls. And it sparked trouble because some people turned up with machetes. And just using that word machete in English, it blows my mind that we've gotten to a point where it sounds like I'm describing somewhere in Africa, but people were roaming the streets in England with machetes and causing trouble and getting into fights. And so the media started reporting that the far right were taking advantage of the mourning of these innocent girls. And people were looking around saying, well, where's the far right? Where is this far right? Of course, there is no far right. And what we saw were, many different protesters, but in particular, there've been a number of Mohammedan protesters that have turned into riots. And they're out there with their balaclavas on, with their machetes in hand, with their wooden planks, and they're beating up white Britons. They're damaging cars. They're destroying pubs. And the media is covering it up, and the politicians are doubling down. So we had our prime minister. He's given a press statement pretty much every day for the last few days. And he gets on, he says, well, this has all been instigated by far-right people online, pointing at people like myself who are saying, well, be angry, have righteous judgment, have righteous indignation, but do not get violent. And that's very important. So anyone that I've seen who's on the centre-right of politics online has been saying, do not be violent in these protests. However, the Prime Minister continues to blame what he calls far-right thugs, both online and offline. And in the media, we've got, our mainstream media, we've got BBC, we've got Sky TV, so we've got that's the state broadcast of the BBC, and then Sky TV is Rupert Murdoch's channel, and they are standing there, and it's very much reminiscent of what you guys had with Black Lives Matter, because we had a reporter standing there saying largely peaceful protests, and then in the same sentence, he tells us about these thugs with their machetes and their sticks destroying cars and pubs and picking fights. Like, what is largely peaceful about that? And how bizarre that when it is Mohammedans out there, they are described as largely peaceful. But any slight incident involving white Britons, and the Prime Minister gets on TV and say, we are going to clamp down on these far-right thugs. He says we're going to give more money and more protection to the Muslims to protect their mosques. It's like, the mosques aren't in danger. British lives are what are in danger.
Well, it's very Orwellian, and some of the footage that I've seen looks like Muslim individuals surrounding white Britons and attacking them unprovoked. I saw this clip from Sky News where a reporter was surrounded by these migrant protesters. I'll play this for you.
Community leaders have been speaking to the police as well because...
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
easy on me.
But I think, apologies for the language you're hearing, but a sense of the anger, I think you can hear there.
And she's surrounded by these migrants, it appears, and they have to cut away from her.
And before they cut away, you see some of the migrants with their gun signs directly down the lens of the camera.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it, they are threatening. But this is sparking up the problem that we've had in this country with mass immigration, both legal and illegal. Since 1997, with the Tony Blair government, we've had successive Labour and Conservative governments, so both left and apparently right-wing, who've been importing both illegal and legal immigrants for so long that actually our demographics are changing, our culture is changing, and we as a British culture is being suppressed, our Christian heritage is being suppressed. And so people are getting actually quite fed up. This country feels like it's a tinderbox on the edge of potentially a cultural war.
Well, and I agree that it feels like a tinderbox. Even from my vantage point over here in the States, I see that they're threatening prison sentences of up to 10 years for rioting, up to 5 years for violent disorder, up to 7 years for inciting racial hatred, up to 10 years for criminal damage. It seems like they're trying to back the white Britons into a corner.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a man in Leeds has been arrested and facing prosecution for allegedly online hatred linked to these disorders. So, a man was given 15 weeks in jail for posting so-called racist comments on Facebook. A man was given 24 months in prison for selling anti-immigration stickers. Now, mirror this against a man an immigrant man, a Muslim man who was given 180 community hours, no prison time, for repeatedly raping a 12-year-old girl. So it's not just that they're clamping down on certain demographics, it's they're letting other demographics get away with things. There's a two-tiered policing system going on here. It feels like to the liberal elite, to the politicians and the mainstream media and even the hierarchy of the churches, there is an untouchable demographic that has to be protected at all costs to protect the idol of diversity, whereas actually the native Britons, the Christians, the white folk are fair game.
It is mind-blowing to watch, and it doesn't seem like there's many thought leaders out there standing up against this tyranny in England. You know, Nigel Farage has spoken out about two-tiered justice system. You obviously stand strong, and I respect you for that. Tommy Robinson is another one. Who are the thought leaders in England that are pushing back against this, and why does it seem like there's so few?
There are so few. The names you just mentioned are pretty much the most predominant names who are standing up, but there's a good reason for that. A community called Five Pillars, Islamists, had put out a hit list essentially the other day. Top 10 online instigators of far-right riots. Of course, none of us are instigators of far-right riots, but the people they listed were Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage, Darren Grimes, Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's a Muslim, for goodness sake. Yeah. Dave Atherton, Lawrence Fox, myself, Paul Golding, and a couple of others. But essentially just they put out this list and say, these are the people to blame. But it's not just a list for the government and the police to see. It's a list for their Islamist followers to see. They're essentially putting a hit list on our heads from the jihadis, saying these are the people that hate Muslims, which is, of course, not the case. None of us are saying that. We're all saying protest peacefully. Be angry about the death of innocent lives, but get out there on the street or protest your local politicians peacefully, democratically, as best you can, but do not resort to violence. All of us have said do not resort to violence. And actually, we're raising awareness of the problems of mass immigration because we want unity. We want a united kingdom again. And we can't have that while the government is pushing a two-tiered system.
No, and you can't have that while boats are still coming across the English Channel. What has changed? I had heard that there was going to be a relocation of many migrants to Rwanda. Is that still on the table?
That was off the table with immediate effect the moment that the Labour government came into power. So what's changed is we have a new Labour government. The Conservatives were in power for 14 years. They didn't conserve anything, so we got rid of them. We'd had enough of them. We saw immigration skyrocketing. We saw, as you rightly said, boats coming over the shore from France every day. We're seeing illegal immigrants being smuggled by these gangsters, and we can't vet them. They have no paperwork. They could be anyone. And actually, rape is up, assault is up, knife crime is up as a direct result. And so we have no way of doing anything about it. The Conservative government weren't doing anything about it. They talked about Rwanda, but no one got shipped off to Rwanda, despite spending money on the scheme. And so we said, actually, we're not going to vote for the Conservatives anymore. And it's not that people voted for Labour, because Labour got fewer votes in this election than they did in the last 2 elections that they lost. So people didn't turn around and start voting for Labour. People just stopped voting for the Conservatives. And that's where we are right now.
And just to clarify, your Labour Party is essentially our leftist radical Democrats, correct?
Oh, yeah. But the problem we have is that our Conservatives are pretty much the same, but maybe 5 minutes ahead of them.
Yeah.
So we have no right-wing party at the moment in this country. This is one of the reasons that I personally have joined the UKIP party, the UK Independence Party. I've just become the lead spokesman for the purposes of having, I looked around, I had no one to vote for. I tried to find a pro-life party. I tried to find someone that had Christian values and believed in Britain. I couldn't find anyone to vote for.
It's shocking. Are you fearful for your safety in England? Are you fearful that either you could be attacked by jihadis or that you could be attacked by your own government?
Absolutely. I think either I'm going to be arrested and persecuted by my government, or I'm going to be killed by the Mohammedans. As long as I remain in this country, I definitely see that in my future. I'm not afraid of it per se, because I don't seek martyrdom, but if they martyr me, I know I'll be given glory by our Lord and Savior. But I prefer not to die.
I think that's
I prefer
fair.
not to sit in prison.
Yeah. What's the call to action currently? What are you telling the people around you that needs to be done, and what can we do to support you guys from over here in America?
What I'm telling people here is regroup, not retreat, but regroup. Like, be cautious, because the false flags are everywhere. They're looking to set people up. They're looking to arrest people. They're looking to harm people. They're looking to instigate trouble, both sides. And so be careful is my advice. But to my American cousins, it's to take us as a warning. Heed this warning, because you guys are close to this. Do not follow what we're doing. Do not copy what we're doing. Hold your government to account. Hold your media to account, and make sure that you address the issue of mass immigration.
You said something there that I want to expand on. You said false flags are everywhere. Explain that in a little bit more detail.
So we hold rallies. So Tommy Robinson, Lawrence Fox, Cole Benjamin, myself, and a number of others, Katie Hopkins, dissidents, if you will, of the right. So not the people in the elite of the right, but the dissidents of the right set up this movement. And we had an event on the 1st of June, and we had one on the 27th of July in London, where patriots could come and say enough is enough, but also, we tagline these events uniting the kingdom, because it's about getting people together under the Union flag, just reminding each other that we can still be British no matter what our race, no matter what our religion, if we come together as one people. And so we've been holding these events, and we've been very cautious about these false flags, because it's become evident that, you guys would call them feds. We don't have feds over here, but there are elements that want to cause upset. And so we said, don't wear face coverings, no coverings whatsoever. Of course, we're against hijabs and niqabs as it is, but there are many people that like to put balaclavas on and stuff like that. We said, no, you cannot come to our event like that. If you can't come and show your face, whether for your job or something like that, then don't come to the event, because it's a family-friendly event. And we don't want people covering their faces for purposes of, we don't want people kicking off anonymously. And we are very aware that we have to police ourselves. So we had stewards all around the event, so that if anything did happen, we could handle it ourselves without having to call in the police, we've seen the police attack rallies and just try to make it look like the protesters were violent. And likewise, there are always counter protests whenever we hold a rally. And so we have our own stewards to make sure there's a big gap between our rally and the counter protesters, so they don't come into conflict. So we're doing everything we can to make things peaceful, because there are state actors, there are deep state actors, and there are hard left activists who want to cause trouble, to point the finger and say, these are far-right thugs. And we're not far-right thugs at all. We're just patriots.
What do the police on the ground say? I would assume that you still have some police that love the country, love the people that live there. What's their reaction to all of this?
I only ever hear from retired police officers who are sick and tired of it all. The actual police officers on the ground are not doing a very good job. We've seen where they stand around as Mohammedans hold machetes in their hands and fight each other like a sword fight, for goodness sake, or attack Brits. It is absolutely insane. It's medieval. And then the police stand around. But at the same time, we've seen the police start fights with patriots, as in punching white Brits in the face, arresting 72-year-old white women, just people who are harmless or people who are sick and tired are becoming the problem for the police. I don't know what it is, but our police have gone downhill over the years. We used to have height restrictions and we used to have fitness criteria. All of that's gone out the window. As I've seen quite a bit of footage recently of, we've got a midget woman in our police force, right, with full riot gear, but one little nudge, she's over. Like, she's not going to protect anyone or help anyone. This is diversity, inclusion, and equality gone mad. The idea that everyone can do everything. Of course, no, not everyone can do everything. We all have limits. We all have different gifts and talents, and that's a good thing to be embraced, not to shy away from.
We're speaking with Father Calvin Robinson, who is over in England, about what's happening there right now. I guess I'm curious about your prediction on what happens next.
Well, actually, I think this is the turning point. So either we manage to find a way to get these people out of office and get people in that understand and are not disconnected from the common folk. Either we do that or we're done, right? I don't see a way out of this. I just think perhaps this is it. Perhaps this is the end of the British Empire. We had our peak just before World War I, and we've been on a downward trend since then, really. And we'd be looking to you guys as our big brother in the playground to kind of help us whenever there's been a bully around. We haven't had the confidence or the resources to stand on our own 2 feet for a long time, almost 100 years now, actually. And so maybe this is it.
It's sad to hear that, and I can hear the pain in your voice when you say that, and I pray that that's not the case. What do you
Absolutely.
think?
I mean, the United Kingdom, well, Great Britain, pretty much founded Christendom in the West as we know it. We call it the West now, but it has been known as Christendom. We spread the gospel all around the world, across the African continent, Asia. Of course, the founding fathers came from here. This is where it all began, really and truly, as Western civilization after the Roman Empire. And now, perhaps we're seeing the end of that. And it is a great shame. It is a great loss. But that's not the end of the world. It may be just the end of Great Britain as we know it. And so what we have to do is, as conservatives and as Christians, we have to stick together, make sure we can help reshape whatever is to come next, rising from the ashes, and make sure it's actually more Christ-focused than it was last time, because it didn't take long for the liberals and the Marxists to pull Christ out of every single institution.
No, you're not wrong. And that's been the plan all along. Father Calvin Robinson, thank you so much for the time to break down exactly what's happening in England right now. Where can people find you and keep in contact and kind of get updates on what's happening?
Thank you. Yes, I'm Calvin Robinson on most social media platforms, so Twitter and Instagram. I've got calvinrobinson.com, which is my Substack. And if people are interested in the island that we're going to reclaim for Christendom, it's givesendgo.com/Torsa, which is TORSA.
And I guess the last thing I'll ask you before we leave is we have a big Christian audience. Is there any prayer requests that we could pray for you guys in any way and send our support like that?
Yes, absolutely. Please do pray. There is, I alluded to it, but there's an island off the coast of Scotland that some hate preachers, some Islamist extremists were trying to purchase. And thankfully, the owner said no. But we as Christians are trying to purchase it for Christendom instead. So at least we'll have a little safe haven, a little island of our own where we can create a Christian retreat, and people who want to get away from the madness and hubbub of modernity can go and spend some time in God's good creation. So please pray that that comes to fruition. And if people feel that they'd like to donate, even if it's just $5, it's givesendgo.com/Torsa.
Hey, I appreciate your time, Father. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you. Father Calvin Robinson breaking down exactly what we're seeing in England. Great guy. Please go find him on all the social platforms at Calvin Robinson. It's 10:54 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets...
Hey, what's up, guys?
My closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
It's 11 o'clock. I'm Jeff Malinoff with your top stories. 88 degrees, only going to get hotter later on in the day. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Vice President and presumptive Democrat nominee Kamala Harris has chosen her running mate in Minnesota's Governor's Tim Walz. The pick was made in part of hopefully to get momentum in the multiple battleground states that lie in the Midwest. ABC's Jonathan Carl with more.
Minnesota, a state that Democrats won last time and we're counting on winning again, but where Donald Trump had shown strength. And more importantly, it's that whole area, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan. The feeling was having a Midwest governor who had governed in a state that has significant pockets of Republican voters would be good for her.
Update on Tropical Storm Debbie. It has caused thousands of flights to be canceled. Here's Trevor Alt.
Frustrated travelers facing delay after delay, dealing with the ripple effects from Tropical Storm Debbie and a series of scattered summer storms across the Midwest and Northeast. Nationwide, more than 23,000 flights canceled or delayed since Sunday, with Debbie's pummeling winds and rains hitting Florida airports hard.
News in Nashville. The Metro Nashville Police Department is investigating after a person was fatally struck by a train in Madison on Monday night. According to the MNPD, officers were dispatched to the railroad tracks between East Campbell Road and Gallatin Pike North after the train conductor reported hitting a person on the tracks. They arrived to find the conductor standing next to the victim, who was lying near the tree line, unresponsive. The police also said the conductor told them the person was spotted sitting on the tracks while the train was in motion and did not move before getting hit. The pedestrian was pronounced dead at the scene, and the investigation is ongoing. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jeff Malinoff, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
It's 11:06 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Thank you again to Father Calvin Robinson for jumping on the show. That'll be podcasted on Apple and Spotify. We're going to keep moving forward motion. Friend of the show, Susan Crabtree of Real Clear Politics, has a fascinating story on the cocaine in the White House, and she joins us now on the Newsmaker Hotline. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, Miss Crabtree. What is the latest on the cocaine in the White House?
It's great to be on with you again. It is something that I've been working on since last year. I only had a couple sources, but now the sources are coming to me, coming out of the woodwork, because they are so concerned about the assassination attempt at that July 13th, the terrible rally, and then it was totally botched, the security. But this shows the culture at the Secret Service, because strangely enough, I was told repeatedly by many sources, I wanted to nail it down completely before I went with the story, that Kim Cheadle, who resigned as Secret Service director after her disastrous testimony before the House Government Oversight Committee, she wanted that cocaine that was found, that evidence destroyed. And she asked and pushed for it within the agency, but it was already in a vault where the Forensic Services Division keeps evidence. And to the credit of the Forensic Services Division Chief and the Uniform Division Chief, they pushed back and they refused to destroy the evidence.
So just to be clear, the former U.S. Secret Service director, the one that was in charge while the assassination attempt unfolded, was also one of the voices that wanted to destroy the evidence of the cocaine in the White House.
She was the voice.
Wow.
She was the leading voice. It was a person, it could have been a person calling on her behalf, but I have the name of the individual, Matt White, that was contacted, who's the supervisor of the vault where this cocaine evidence was kept. It was a gram of cocaine, but the fact that they even found it and disclosed it to the public is, I'm being told by my Secret Service community sources, it normally would never have come to the public eye, because they just destroy what they call contraband if it's the personal detail of a protectee, like the president, the former president, first family, etc. If they encounter drugs, they just flush it down the toilet. That's a direct quote.
So theoretically, there could have been more drugs found by the Secret Service during the Biden regime from protectees, from family, that we've never heard about.
Correct. And then it's not even like it rises to the level of something that they're outraged about in terms of that. But the protectees protect the president, and they flush it if they find anything like anything. But in this case, it wasn't the inner circle, the innermost security detail guarding the president. It was a uniform division. They're basically rank and file foot soldiers that guard the White House complex and other events. And actually, counter snipers are part of that division too. They're officers. They're not special agents. It's a different role. And they came across this at a really quiet Sunday evening, the weekend before July 4th, and they found it. And the president and his family and Hunter Biden were at Camp David. And it was a big to-do at the White House on the sleepy night, because they thought it might be anthrax or ricin. So they brought in the Metropolitan Police, Fire Department, and EMS, and they evacuated the White House. And that is the only reason why the public knows about this discovery of the cocaine, because the press room, all of the press offices were also evacuated, and so they had to provide an explanation to the press about why were they evacuating, what kind of situation we had here. And that leaked out to the press. It wasn't officially disclosed. And that's when this whole thing about what they're going to do with this evidence began, because they normally just flush it down the toilet.
Yeah, it begs the question, what else are they willing to cover up?
It certainly does. There's a reason why the Secret Service details are so close to presidents, and there's a reason why Senator Grassley and Catherine Cortez Masto, in a bipartisan way, don't want the president to be able to appoint his own Secret Service director, because they're appointing people that are too cozy with the first family. This particular director, Kimberly Cheadle, was, as we know now from great reporting from my good colleague, friend, Stephen Nelson at the New York Post, that Jill Biden directly was involved in her hire because she was attached to the vice president's detail, the innermost ring of the security, when Biden was vice president.
Yeah, and then you find yourself in a situation where you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you.
Correct. And I also understand that Joe Biden played a role in getting her that Pepsi job, the big security, lucrative job at Pepsi, and that she came out of retirement to become his director of the Secret Service when Biden was elected. It took a year for him to get around to that appointment. But there's also just terrible things that happen because when these people pushed back, the head of the uniform division, he was actually an African-American guy, and Cheeto is known for pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion. But she passed him over for a promotion. He was the acting director because the current director retired, and he was in a position to get the promotion. But because he pushed back, my sources are telling me many believe in the Secret Service that he was retaliated against. She brought somebody out of retirement to take that top job at the uniform division. And the retaliation, going back to my reporting, I've been reporting on the Secret Service as part of my White House beat for 12 years. This is a culture of corruption at the Secret Service. It needs to be cleaned out. It's all of the top leaders and their deputies all need to go. It needs the top to bottom overhaul.
Yeah, every time I read your reporting, it feels like I need a shower after because it's so slimy and incestual what you hear about happening in behind those closed doors.
Oh, it's absolutely true. I've been reporting on this for so long, ever since the prostitution scandal in Colombia in 2014. And the problem with that, the reason why that scandal became such a big deal is because they were singled out unfairly. There was a lot of that had happened many times. They just got caught. Okay? It just leaked to the press in that particular instance. But this was a known thing that went on. There is so much problems, and it's sort of like this culture where when you reach the top levels, people keep moving up because they know where the bodies are buried. They can't get rid of them. And so that's what's the problem. Everybody has something on the other person. I'm not kidding about this. I usually don't go out on a limb, and I try to make sure everything is evidence-based. I've been reporting on this agency for 12 years, and I continually hear the same thing. It's retaliation if you don't go along with what they want you to do, even if it's unethical, even if it's a polygraph. I wrote about this the other day. A son of a Secret Service agent, his son fails a polygraph, then you go against protocol, and you're forced as the polygraph administrator to provide him another test so that he can retake the test again.
So is it a culture? Is it a culture of blackmail?
I call it culture corruption. They've called it a culture, a CYA culture. There was a counter sniper who put out an email that I was given the other day, and I put it out on Twitter because it was right before the Senate hearing, and he was so disgusted, this counter sniper, that because they had just instituted this new R&D, research and development technology, to help out with their drone program that was was chaotic on the day of the rally. We still don't have the full story on that. I hope to flush that out. But he was so angry. He said a day late and $1 short.
Yep.
That's what he responded, and he replied all to. And someone said, "Did you really mean to reply all to this announcement so every person in the uniform division gets your email?" And he said, basically, damn straight. And he continued and just had basically a rant against the Secret Service, but a justified rant, saying that this is a CYA culture, and all of the top officials are engaging in it, and you're all part of the problem, and you've rejected our advice and our push for more technology changes over the course of many, many years. And this is why the Butler rally, that someone died, that Corey Comparatori was murdered in front of his family, and that rally goers now, you can't take place in democracy. You can't decide to go to a rally, a political rally, as an American citizen anymore without thinking that shots might ring out, that your life might be in danger. This is why we need to clean up the Secret Service. It's not just just a matter of, bureaucratic agency needs to be clean. It's a matter of everybody's right in this country to participate in politics.
Amen. And it's getting disgusting. I've even started doing air quotes anytime I say assassination investigation. What's the latest on the air quote investigation that we know so far? We still don't have a motive. We still don't know about the social media picture fully. Where are you at as far as the assassination attempt and where the investigation is?
Well, let me just tell you back up a second. And the FBI did a search. They read the cocaine, okay? They evaluated the cocaine. And they found a partial DNA hit, according to one of my sources, a very good source. So the FBI is involved in this. They knew there was a partial hit, and a partial hit means that they found whoever was in the White House that weekend, they'd have waves. Anybody who enters the White House, there's a waves record of it, it's called. And so they took that pool of people, and they found a partial hit, meaning they found a family member who could be linked to this person by the DNA.
Shocker.
On the cocaine baggie, but they did not push forward with it. Okay, so the FBI knew well aware there was a partial hit on this cocaine baggie, and they didn't say anything. What does that tell you about the FBI investigation?
Mm-hmm.
What does it tell you that Christopher Wray sits there and regurgitated rumors, conspiracy theories that he didn't know if Donald Trump was wounded by a bullet, or if it was something else? He said that how many days after? It was 2 weeks after the assassination attempt. He's testifying before Congress, to the Senate Joint Committee, and he doesn't know if it was a bullet or not. I mean, I don't trust the FBI to handle this investigation correctly. It needs to be outside. It needs to be Congress, but why are they preventing 13 Secret Service agents and others that are key to this investigation from testifying to Congress?
It's a good question.
Why haven't they allowed them to testify? I mean, the subpoenas are going to be issued. You have to wait on subpoenas. But the Democrats in the Senate control the investigation. I'm not sure. We'll see if they seem pretty upset about this. And then you had the episode with Kamala Harris, 20 feet from a pipe on the DNC. That news dropped on Friday in the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General report. So it's not a partisan issue. This shows that they did not protect Kamala Harris and that they had weakness. It was old protocols. Once again, it's not. It can be. There's some political elements to the Donald Trump aspects of limiting his security, not providing him additional resources, and certainly with RFK, I believe, and he said he believes it's politically motivated. That he bribed from one resource to RFK Jr., who had his dad or his uncle and his dad assassinated.
Yep.
I mean, that's just horrendous in my book. But the fact that we're going back and they're not letting the Congress interview these three key people, I really hope that the Democrats issue subpoenas and the Republicans are just clamoring for the information on the Senate side. I'm telling you, the only serious senators running this investigation so far are Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin and Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri and Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa. Everyone else, they've done their own investigations. They've provided research. No one else is doing it.
It's mind-blowing to hear you say that, and I'm not shocked when you mention Josh Hawley. I think he's fantastic. We're talking with Susan Crabtree, who's been doing some fantastic reporting on the Secret Service for years now. She's with Real Clear Politics. Are we going to get any information from these investigations at any point?
Well, I think they're under pressure because it's both sides that it's affecting. I don't trust the Secret Service. Anything that they produce is not going to. They're not making They might say, "Oh, we need the FBI investigation to run its course." That's supposed to come out in December, And meanwhile, that's after the election.
Yep.
There needs to be change now. And of course, now they're giving additional resources. That was the first time that the Secret Service provided counter snipers to a Donald Trump rally as he was running for president again, as a former president. That is absurd to me. That means that they're providing more security for Joe Biden, maybe even Jill Biden. We don't know. They won't say how much. I've asked them the day after the assassination, how many assets were given to that Jill Biden event, or the same day, that same night in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And they will not tell me. Grassley found out that the post standards were just completely lopsided, 3 at Trump's event and 12 at Jill Biden's event.
Wow. That's insane.
I mean, he discovered that. And I had initially reported on that, that it was lopsided or misallocated the day after the assassination attempt. And then Grassley found that piece of information, but they still won't tell me if there were counter snipers at that 300 person event in a casino inside event for Joe Biden. They won't tell me. Why won't they tell me?
It's insane, and it blows my mind that we're now over 3 weeks out, and we still don't really have anything to go on. Do you think that's by design?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at, so Anthony Guglielmi, he is the spokesman for the Secret Service. Just look at the things that he's played down over the years. He's played down an intrusion into Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor for Biden's home. That's supposed to be protected by the Secret Service, okay? So what happened there? He played that down. Oh, it was not a big deal at all. Go look at the comments that he's made. He had to retract his statement about the assets not being, the denials for more assets from Trump's personal security detail. He had to, only when the Washington Post reported it, he said that we were wrong. And in the 48 hours, my reporting and other people's reporting on that was wrong in the 48 hours. He direct quote tweeted me saying it was wrong. I was saying I'm standing by my sources. And I said, why don't you answer the 6 detailed questions that I emailed to you on Sunday after the assassination attempt? And he will not deal with me in the email. He only wants to deal with me on Twitter publicly. And so then fast forward 4 days and the Washington Post does a story and he actually says, oh, I'm reevaluating it now. I'm looking into that. And he allows that he was wrong in the past, that just 4 days prior. So that he doesn't even know. I don't think he's in the information loop.
It's absolutely insane. I feel like we could talk all day about this because you're a wealth of information, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Susan Crabtree does fantastic reporting with Real Clear Politics. Are you going to be dropping any new articles soon?
I'm working on one about drones, so I'm hoping to do that today or tomorrow.
Perfect. Well, we're looking forward to it. Susan Crabtree, where can we find you online?
Just at Susan Crabtree is on Twitter, on X, and then at realclearpolitics.com is my employer, and they do wonderful work, and you can find all kinds of great information about politics there.
I really appreciate you, Ms. Crabtree. Looking forward to having you on again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your deep interest in this.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's the most interesting case. I feel like it's one of the biggest topics that the mainstream media is avoiding. And I give you tons of credit for persisting and going down these rabbit holes and investigating all this for us. We really appreciate you.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Susan Crabtree, it's 11:26. We went a little late on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, They want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
It's 11:30. I'm Jeff Malinoff with your top stories. 89 degrees. It's only going to get hotter. It's going to get up to those 90s. Don't worry, it's going to happen. Forecast in 5 minutes. Vice President Kamala Harris announcing Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. ABC's Jonathan Karl has more with the decision.
He is seen, certainly among these three finalists, as the most progressive, the most liberal politically of the three finalists. But he does, have a record in Congress as a rather moderate Democrat representing a very moderate to conservative district in Minnesota.
After yesterday's dive in the stock market, the focus turns to the Federal Reserve's response. Here's Rebecca Jarvis.
It really comes down to what the Fed does next with interest rates, then how investors, consumers, and employers react. And there's conversations right now about the Fed perhaps cutting interest rates before it meets in September. It will very likely cut in September. That means credit card bills, your APRs go lower, mortgage rates, if you're trying to buy a house, new car loans, they get less expensive.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jeff Malinoff, WTN News.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
$11:34 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. We've had a jam-packed show today. If you missed anything, we're going to have them all podcasted. We had an interview with John Tillman, who's the CEO of the American Culture Project. He talked to us about the new VP hopeful, Tim Walz, who Kamala selected today. We talked with Father Calvin Robinson about what's happening in England with the protests/riots that's going on over there. Fantastic interview. And then Susan Crabtree just dropping bombs on the Secret Service when it comes to their cover-ups of the cocaine in the White House and all the other cover-ups that we don't really know about. You can find all those interviews on the podcast page at 997WTN.com or on Apple and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can listen to the show, take it wherever you go with the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, the 99.7 WTN app. You can watch us on Super Talk TV, which I do want to give kudos to Mason. Today was the first time on Super Talk TV where we had a video interview with Father Calvin Robinson. So he was on video on the stream from England.
Yeah, which was mind-blowing just to be able to get that set up.
It was our first time doing it. I had asked Mac Morey many times.
Slacker.
Yeah. Mason got it done. So shout out to Mason.
I'm just saying, I can do what Mac Morey couldn't. Remember that.
Yeah, I will. No, it's clutch. It's been clutch. It's been a wild day.
It's been a great day.
I saw a ticker on CNN. They said the Democrat base is energized by the Tim Walz VP pick. Whoa. Energized. Does anybody even know who he is?
Yeah, didn't I see 71% didn't know who this guy was?
71% of voters were unfamiliar with him, but he's energizing them. Last year, Tim Walz signed an executive order that made Minnesota a sanctuary state for child mutilation surgeries. That's Tim Walz. Tim Walz is the guy that let Minneapolis burn to the ground and delayed calling National Guard during the Summer of Love. That's Tim Walz. Tim Walz is the guy who replaced the Minnesota state flag with a flag that looks eerily similar to Somalia. That's Tim Walz. And I think it's also important to point out that they didn't choose him because he's energizing the base. They chose him because the other guy that was the top hopeful was just a little too Jewish. Yeah. Let's not mince words. Josh Shapiro was a little too Jewish for the Democrat Party. The tolerant left, the party that calls us Nazis, couldn't pick a Jew for VP. Whew. It's been a spicy day. But if you don't know who Tim Walz is, the now VP, let me reintroduce you. Tim Walz delayed the National Guard during the Summer of Love and let Minneapolis burn to the ground. He turned Minneapolis into a war zone with his lack of care, with his lack of urgency during the Summer of Love. Tim Walz has overseen the most radical youth trans surgery laws in the country. He calls it healthcare. Tomato, right? I call it child mutilation for kids that don't know what the future holds for them, and Tim Walz calls it gender-affirming care. They have abortion on demand in Minnesota. Radical abortion on demand, zero limits. On immigration, Tim Walz wanted to provide illegal aliens with a ladder to be able to climb over the wall. He said that in an interview. That's Tim Walz. He also oversaw the worst of the COVID-era fraud. He had $250 million of taxpayer money for the Feeding Our Future cause. And the ineptitude with his Department of Education, criminals were able to steal millions upon millions of dollars to spend on luxury cars, houses, and vacations during COVID. Also during COVID, he approved $500 million in hero pay for frontline workers, which, sounded nice at the time, but 40% of that money went to people who were ineligible for it in many cases, and in some cases, it went to people who were quite literally deceased. He's also been known as Pelosi's sidekick and did whatever the Democrats demanded when he was in the House. So they're going to try and make him a Midwestern man, but he is a radical leftist. We have Commie Kamala and we have Marxist Tim Walz. It's a match made in hell. It's a match made in hell. But the base is energized. They're glad they didn't get a Jewish guy as the VP. A lot of people are wondering if, this is because nobody else would take the job. I think if it had been Pete Buttigieg as VP, we could have made the argument that nobody else wanted the job. But Tim Walz he's eager. And he gives off that Tim Kaine vibe, that Tim Kaine energy. But hey, if the Democrats want to keep making mistakes, let's not interrupt them, okay? If they don't want to choose a VP because he's Jewish, let's not interrupt them for that. Let's just lean in on that. Let's lean in. So, Shapiro was too Jewish. Interesting. Trump on the flip side, Trump is on the campaign trail. He had a stream yesterday with the biggest kick streamer in the world, Aiden Ross, one of the biggest kick streamers in the world, and he got a lot of eyeballs from a lot of young voters. A lot of eyeballs. It was actually interesting to see. Some of the moments were funny. People don't understand what Trump does. I'll tell you, he leans in to the internet conversation, especially when he's on some of these podcasts and these streams. And yesterday, he brought up Trudeau possibly being Castro's kid, which is maybe one of the funniest things I've ever heard, because this meme has been on the internet forever. Have you seen the memes where it's Fidel Castro next to Justin Trudeau? Have you seen those, Mason? Google it.
No, I haven't. Yeah, let me look it up.
Google Fidel Castro, Justin Trudeau, and tell me that they don't look identical.
He's turned very liberal, actually. They say he's the son of Fidel Castro. and could be. I mean, anything's possible in this world, you know?
Anything is possible in this world. If you've ever seen the side-by-sides of Justin Trudeau and Fidel Castro, yeah, that is definitely possible. Definitely possible. He also was asked about the coup of Joe Biden. Donald Trump was yesterday during this stream.
Do you think he was pushed out, or do you think he made the decision to step down?
No, he was not only pushed out, it was a coup. I'm telling you. They went in to see him. He did badly. The debate was a disaster.
It was horrible.
Okay. I don't know if I was brilliant or if he was horrible. Maybe it was a combination of both.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I know one thing. They were saying after I left, they said, that was one of the greatest debate performances we've ever seen. And then 2 days later, they just said he was terrible.
Right.
They never gave. They took away the great debate performance stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I mean, I did fine, and he is. He shouldn't have. Look, he's done tremendous damage to our country. He was a terrible president. He was the worst president we've ever had. She's, by the way, considered the most unpopular vice president we've ever had. But she's she's worse than he is. I actually think he's smarter than her, and I think he's a really not smart person. But I think he's smarter than she is.
That may be one of my favorite Trump quotes of all time when talking about Biden and Harris. I actually think he's smarter than her, and he's a very not smart person
we've ever had. But she's she's worse than he is. I actually think he's smarter than her, and I think he's a really not smart person. But I think he's smarter than she is.
Yeah. He said they installed Kamala. She was there, and it was easier. And he also goes on to say that the people that she's considering for VP are actually better than her. This interview was done yesterday, so this is before the Tim Walz news. But he says the people that she's considering for VP are better than she is.
But she was convenient. She was there. They have better people. I mean,
I love that endorsement. Well, she was there. She certainly showed up.
It's like the random thing you stick in a bucket that's got a leak. It's like, well, we got to stop it somehow.
Yeah. Did you see the picture of Fidel Castro and Justin Trudeau?
That's a little weird.
It's weird, right?
It's weird.
It's weird.
She was there. They have better people. I mean, they have much better people. In fact, all of the people that she's looking at are considered much better than her. These were people that were thinking about running. They would have run, except that they didn't want to go through this roadblock with her. And, because you're the vice president. So they wanted to go pick them. And I think virtually every one of them is considered better, smarter, would be a better president than her. But we can't allow her to be president. She's going to destroy our country.
No, we can't. We can't allow her to be president. But listen, the polls, they're going to inflate Kamala's worth. The mainstream media is doing their best to gaslight you and prop her up. But on the big issues, on the border, Trump leads in the polls. On the economy, Trump leads in the polls.
Trump leads her among independents in Michigan by 8. Trump leads her among independents in Pennsylvania by 9. Trump leads her in Wisconsin among independents by 4.
That's on the economy.
In 2020, Joe Biden won this group by a whopping 15 points, 52-37, according to our voter analysis. If the issue is the economy, that's what independent voters vote on.
Well, look at the economy today. Ask an independent voter what they think. Do they want to continue this Biden-Harris policy on the economy? Do they like the current in-store prices? Do you like the current gas prices? If you want more of the same, vote blue no matter who, right? I don't think many independents are going to be swayed to Kamala Harris. I mean, this is Kamala Harris on inflation.
What else are you going to do to fix this problem with inflation?
All right, thank you. Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up. And
that's true.
Families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more.
Obviously.
And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up. That's about having to stress and stretch limited resources. That's about a source of stress for families that is not only economic, but is on a daily level something that is a heavy weight to carry. So it is something that we take very seriously, very seriously. And we know from the history of this issue in the United States that when you see these prices go up, it has a direct impact on the quality of life for all people in our country. So it's a big issue, and we take it seriously.
Okay, yeah.
And it is a priority, therefore.
It's a big issue. We take it seriously. Okay. Do you trust this lady on the economy?
Obviously.
When prices go up, the amount in your bank account goes down, and we're going to take that serious. Obviously.
Obviously.
So, Tim Walz, the VP pick, is energizing the base. Van Jones actually went on CNN today and admitted out loud that Kamala Harris is appeasing the anti-Jewish bigots in the Democrat Party by picking Walz as the VP.
Do you think it was a little risky, though, Van, that she didn't go with Shapiro to kind of lock down Pennsylvania? I mean, yes, David Challenger was saying earlier, just because you pick him as your running mate doesn't mean you automatically win Pennsylvania. But I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Hey, listen, the conservatives, the right wing, the Republicans, they were chewing their fingernails down to the knuckle because they were afraid of a Josh Shapiro. They were afraid of a Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this new governor because they think they can define him. So here's the challenge you've got in this party. And people don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it. On the one hand, you have a lot of young people who are concerned about Gaza. You have a lot of Muslims and Arabs and others. They have not felt seen by the Biden administration. You start hearing that genocide joke. That was building.
And I'd add the abandoned Biden movement, the hashtag abandoned Biden movement. But let's address it. The Democrats don't like Jews.
And so those folks needed to have a candidate that they could feel comfortable with. This helps them in that regard.
Because he's not Jewish.
But you also have anti-Semitism that has gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is caving into some of these darker parts in the party?
Well, I'll answer that. All of what just happened with the VP choice by Kamala Harris is caving to the anti-Jewish bigots in the radical leftist Democrat Party in 2024. All of it. 100%. 100%. Full stop. They couldn't go with Josh Shapiro because he was too Jewish. So they went with a guy that is a radical Marxist and ruining the state of Minnesota. Good choice. We'll talk to Murphy. I bet you Murphy has some fiery thoughts on this VP choice. He's going to be jumping in here to talk to us next. It's 11:50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 11:55 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand, joined in studio by Matt Murphy. The Democrat base is energized. Have you heard this? CNN told me. The Democrat base is energized by the Tim Walz pick.
So, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
The energy,
Hold on.
no,
Wait a minute.
the energy is palpable.
So, you're saying that #NeverCNN is excited about Kamala Harris's selection for vice president?
Hype.
Huh.
That's
hype. Weird. I was fully anticipating that they would offer a certain level of disappointment about all of this. But no. I was just looking up the answer to our question.
We were having a discussion off the air. Shapiro would have got you Pennsylvania, but he would have lost you Michigan.
19 to 15. Michigan has 15.
Okay, so Pennsylvania has 4 more.
4 more in Pennsylvania. So we're just working through some of the nerdy political stuff on, why you make certain decisions that you make, how those decisions are perceived amongst particularly the Jewish population or anyone that supports Israel for that matter. And I can't think of a reason why you would select Walz over Shapiro outside of the fact that Shapiro is Jewish, Shapiro supports Israel, and that is not I'm trying to sanitize it to be as nice as you. That's not a discussion that Kamala Harris wants to have within her own party, because I don't know that it is. The discussion amongst the Republicans would be whether or not, if the time ever came, America should be expected to provide military assistance. But we're always going to provide that worldly support to the nation of Israel, particularly because they were attacked, right? Amongst the Democrats, it's who do we support? The people that got attacked, slaughtered, brutally raped, or the terrorists? That's their debate.
It's a tough debate for them.
Apparently it is, and apparently Kamala Harris picked today, and she decided she did not wish to have that debate, and she has decided that she's going to side on those radical Muslim Americans that agree with and side with Hamas.
2 million Jewish voters in New York. Does this put New York more in play than it was before?
I would like to believe that that's the case. I'm sad. I think the Jewish population is very much in a place that I found my grandfather to be in the 1980s and 1990s. He was an older guy. He kind of knew that the Democrats weren't the political party that he grew up with.
Yep.
The FDR type political party where, you couldn't throw a rock and hit a Republican in the state of Georgia.
I tell my mother-in-law all the time, if you were voting for JFK today, he'd be a Republican on the ticket.
Well, absolutely he would. He's for lower tax. There's no question about it. So I've long said, today's Republicans are yesterday's Democrats. And today's Democrats are yesterday's socialists. And there aren't really conservatives in Washington, D.C. anymore. So I see the Jewish population looking around and trying to figure out where the hell the political party that they supported for so many years went. And I would expect that African-American voters are doing the same thing.
I think in New York, though, this is important. Lee Zeldin only lost to Kathy Hochul by a few percentage points. Just a few. And that's before the migrant crisis. That's before the Israel-Palestine stuff.
You talk to New Yorkers anywhere other than New York City or Buffalo, and they are typically conservative Republicans, or at least moderate Republicans. So, yeah, but New York means so much, right? And sadly, New Yorkers are a bunch of lemmings.
Yeah, but they've seen it all firsthand now. I hope so. I hope that they've been able to wake up a little bit, enough to upset the apple cart there.
Well, if you're Trump, you impose, the comparisons to 9/11 and this being the Israeli 9/11, the situation that happened on October 7th, are good enough that I think you make that to Manhattan, you make that to New York City, and you rely on the memories of those people who went through that horrific terroristic attack, and maybe New York's in play. Who knows?
I hope
I think it's a great day. I think it's a great day. Game on. Wanted Walz, got him. Love him.
I think the fact that they chose anybody but Shapiro is a win for us.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of a fan of a big boy getting a shot on the ticket, and he's kind of a big boy, so I like that. That's a plus in his column.
Tim Walz running to be the VP, not running anywhere else. It's 12 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.